The lecture hall of the Galactic Military Academy was built to intimidate. Its ceiling vanished into darkness high above rows of elevated seating. Hundreds of cadets from dozens of star systems filled the chamber, each representing species that had conquered hostile worlds, survived extinction events, or forged empires among the stars. Every seat carried the weight of future commanders, future admirals, future rulers. The instructor stood before a tactical projection displaying the aftermath of a simulated planetary campaign. "Victory is never determined by strength alone," he said. "Control of information decides wars long before armies meet." Most students listened carefully. Others reviewed battle data through personal interfaces. Near the back sat a human girl. She wasn't taking notes. She wasn't distracted either. She simply watched. That alone made some of her classmates uncomfortable. Humans had only recently entered the Academy's upper military programs. Compared to older civilizations, they lacked centuries of interstellar warfare. They possessed no psychic abilities, no biological weapons, no enhanced senses, and no extraordinary physical gifts. At least that was the common assumption. Most species viewed humans as adaptable but unremarkable. Useful. Capable. Average. The human girl had spent 2 years quietly damaging that reputation. Not through fights. Not through speeches. Through results. Several top-ranking cadets had challenged her during strategic simulations. None had enjoyed the outcome. A few still refused to discuss those defeats. Yet despite her record, many students remained unconvinced. Humans were still humans. Eventually reality would catch up with confidence. At least that was what most believed. The lecture continued until a notification flashed across every display in the room. The instructor paused mid-sentence. His expression changed immediately. Confusion became surprise. Surprise became concern. The room noticed. Conversation stopped. The instructor read the message twice before clearing his throat. "Remain seated." That only increased curiosity. A side entrance opened. Silence spread through the chamber. Then something massive stepped through the doorway. The newcomer wore dark ceremonial armor covered in campaign markings earned across decades of warfare. Scars crossed exposed sections of gray skin. Medals lined one shoulder. Every movement carried the effortless confidence of someone who had survived situations capable of killing entire armies. Many cadets recognized him instantly. Others recognized the reaction of those who did. A few students straightened in their seats as if responding to instinct. The instructor himself stepped aside without being asked. That alone spoke volumes. The giant figure moved toward the center platform and surveyed the room. No introduction was necessary. General Karvek. One of the most decorated military leaders in known space. Veteran of border wars, planetary rebellions, and deep space campaigns. A commander whose tactical decisions were studied throughout the academy. The room remained completely silent. Karvek folded his arms. "I've reviewed academy performance reports." His voice filled every corner of the hall. "I expected better." Several students shifted uncomfortably. The general continued. "Your scores are excellent. Your simulations are impressive. Your theories are sophisticated." He paused. "And none of it means anything." The statement landed like a physical blow. Karvek slowly walked across the platform. "You've become comfortable." No one responded. "You study war without understanding it. You analyze danger without experiencing it. You chase perfection because you've never faced chaos." The atmosphere grew heavier with every sentence. "The battlefield does not care about your grades." His gaze swept across the room. "It does not care about your species." Another step. "It does not care how intelligent you think you are." The challenge in his voice became impossible to ignore. I look at this room and see future officers who have never been truly tested. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Even students known for arrogance avoided eye contact. Karvek stopped at the center of the platform. Perhaps I'm wrong. A faint smile appeared. If so, prove it. The room froze. The general spread his arms. Challenge me. The words echoed through the hall. Any of you. Seconds passed. Then more. Not a single hand rose. The silence became increasingly uncomfortable. Karvek's expression hardened. Exactly what I expected. Then a hand lifted near the back row. Small. Calm. Unhurried. The human girl. Every head turned. The general noticed immediately. For the first time since entering the room, genuine interest appeared in his eyes. Yes, he asked. The human met his gaze without hesitation. Her voice carried clearly across the chamber. Who exactly do you want me to send? The silence that followed was somehow even deeper than before. For several seconds, nobody reacted. The statement simply hung in the air. General Karvek stared at the human girl as though he had misheard her. Around the chamber, confusion spread rapidly. Cadets exchanged glances. Some checked whether the translation systems had malfunctioned. The general finally spoke. You intend to send someone? The human nodded. If that's what you're asking for. A few students laughed nervously. Karvek did not. His eyes remained fixed on her. I issued the challenge to this room. I know. Then why aren't you volunteering? The human leaned back in her chair. Because you asked for a challenge, not a participant. The room fell silent again. The answer sounded perfectly logical and completely absurd at the same time. The general folded his arms. You believe someone else can represent you? No. Then explain. The human tilted her head slightly. You challenged the academy. Not me specifically. Karvek's expression hardened. And you assume there are others capable of meeting that challenge? I don't assume. The confidence in her voice carried no arrogance. No hostility. No attempt to impress anyone. That made it worse. She sounded like someone stating a fact. Several students who had previously competed against her suddenly became very interested in the floor. They recognized that tone. It was the same one she used before simulations turned into public embarrassments. The general noticed those reactions. His gaze shifted briefly through the audience. A pattern emerged. The students who knew her best looked worried. Not for her. For him. That realization sparked his curiosity. Human, he said, state your name. The girl provided it calmly. Karvek activated his wrist display. Information appeared before him. At first his expression remained unchanged. Then his eyes narrowed. The room watched closely. Simulation rankings. Strategic assessment scores. Command evaluations. Records of academy exercises. The human's file was unusually short. Yet the results attached to it were difficult to ignore. Perfect marks in adaptive warfare. Perfect marks in irregular conflict prediction. Perfect marks in battlefield recovery scenarios. Most remarkable of all, she had accumulated victories against cadets from species specifically engineered for tactical processing. Karvek looked up. You've defeated several advanced command candidates. Sometimes. The answer earned another round of confused looks. Sometimes. Not yes. Not dozens. Sometimes. As though the outcome barely mattered. The general studied her more carefully. Most beings displayed subtle signs when standing before authority. Tension. Defensiveness. Nervous energy. He found none. Her heart rate remained steady according to his armor sensors. Her posture never changed. Even now, she appeared more curious than concerned. "You're remarkably confident." The human shrugged. "You've earned your reputation. I've earned mine." A murmur spread through the room. Karvek almost smiled. Almost. That response was far more interesting than an insult would have been. "You believe your reputation compares to mine?" "No." The answer came instantly. That surprised everyone. The human continued. "You've commanded fleets." "Correct." "You've won wars." "Correct." "You've spent decades proving yourself." "Also correct." She nodded. "So naturally your reputation is larger." The general waited. "But?" A faint grin appeared. "But size and accuracy aren't always the same thing." The chamber exploded with whispers. Even instructors exchanged looks. Nobody spoke to Karvek that way. Not because they feared punishment. Because most people feared being wrong. The human clearly didn't. The general raised a hand and silence returned. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that you're evaluating the wrong thing." "And what should I evaluate?" "Results." The answer landed with unexpected weight. For the first time, Karvek genuinely laughed. A deep, rumbling sound echoed through the hall. Most students relaxed. The tension finally seemed broken. Then the general spoke again. "Very well." His voice became serious once more. "If you're so confident, let's conduct a proper evaluation." Every eye locked onto him. Karvek turned toward the instructor. "Reserve the primary combat arena." The instructor blinked. "The arena, General?" "Yes." The room erupted. The primary arena was used only for major academy events. Championship trials. Fleet command examinations. Interstellar competitions. Never for a classroom challenge. Karvek ignored the reaction. "Notify every department." The instructor hesitated. "You want spectators?" "I want witnesses." The human girl didn't even blink. That caught the general's attention more than anything else. Most cadets would have become nervous the moment the challenge expanded academy-wide. She seemed completely unaffected. "Tomorrow," Karvek announced. "The entire academy will attend. Thousands of students. Hundreds of instructors. Military observers from multiple systems." The challenge had suddenly become public. The general looked directly at the human. "You still accept?" She stood from her seat. "Of course." No hesitation. No discussion. No preparation time requested. Just acceptance. Karvek slowly nodded. Then he asked the question everyone wanted answered. "What makes you think any human can challenge me?" For the first time, the girl's smile widened. A dangerous smile. One that instantly erased whatever confidence remained among those who knew her reputation. She met the general's gaze and replied. "I didn't say any human." The silence returned. This time it felt much heavier. By the following day, the challenge had become the only topic anyone cared about. Students packed every level of the primary arena hours before the scheduled start. Faculty members occupied observation platforms usually reserved for final examinations. Visiting officers postponed meetings to attend. Even cadets who had never met a human wanted to witness whatever happened next. At the center of the arena stood a tactical projection field covering several thousand square meters. This would not be a physical contest. That disappointed some spectators. Those familiar with General Karvek knew better. The general's greatest weapon had never been his strength. It was his mind. Entire military campaigns were still studied because of decisions he had made under impossible circumstances. His opponents often lost before understanding why. A massive display activated above the arena. Historical records began cycling across the screens. Victories. Captured strongholds. Defeated armadas. Successful counterinsurgencies. One achievement after another. The message was obvious. This was not merely a respected commander. This was a living legend. The crowd's confidence in the human side steadily declined as the list continued. Then Karvek entered. Thousands of students immediately fell silent. The general acknowledged nobody. His focus remained entirely on the challenge. Moments later the human girl arrived. No dramatic entrance. No special uniform. No speech. She simply walked into the arena and stopped near the tactical field. Karvek glanced around. "Where is your representative?" The human looked toward one of the entrances. "On the way." The answer drew confused reactions. On the way. The challenge was beginning. What kind of preparation was that? Several moments later another figure appeared. Laughter immediately spread through portions of the audience. The newcomer looked completely ordinary. Human. Young. No famous academy ranking. No impressive combat reputation. No record that anyone could remember. Karvek studied him carefully. Then looked back toward the girl. "This is your choice." "Yes." The general's expression revealed nothing. "Why?" "Because he's available." More laughter. Even some instructors exchanged skeptical looks. The selected cadet appeared almost bored by the attention. He walked onto the tactical field carrying a drink container and finished the last sip before tossing it into a recycling unit. Nothing about him suggested excellence. Nothing about him suggested danger. Karvek began wondering whether the human girl had finally overplayed her confidence. The chosen cadet looked up at the giant display. "What's the format?" The general answered. "Strategic prediction." That finally caught the cadet's attention. He nodded. "Fair enough." The arena systems activated. A battlefield appeared between them. Mountain ranges. Supply routes. Population centers. Orbital assets. Thousands of variables. Karvek immediately recognized the scenario. One of his own campaigns. A classified adaptation used to evaluate command candidates. Very few students had ever achieved passing marks against it. The general gestured toward the projection. "You will analyze my decisions." The human looked at the battlefield. "Only analyze. If you can." The challenge began. For nearly a minute, neither side spoke. The human studied the terrain. Supply lines. Weather patterns. Defensive positions. Civilian migration routes. Every detail. Then he pointed toward a sector near the western flank. "You attacked there first." The general raised an eyebrow. "Correct." Murmurs spread through the crowd. The prediction was impressive but hardly impossible. The human continued. "You wanted them focused on the western advance." Another correct assessment. More whispers. Then he pointed toward a completely different region. The real objective was here. The arena grew quieter. Karvek gave no response. That alone provided an answer. The human continued analyzing. Not cautiously. Not slowly. Rapidly. As though he were reading notes instead of solving a military puzzle. "You sacrificed 3 resource stations." Correct. "You delayed orbital deployment." Correct. "You intentionally leaked partial intelligence." Correct. The spectators stopped talking entirely. Karvek's eyes narrowed. The human wasn't simply identifying outcomes. He was identifying intentions. Those were much harder to predict. Several more minutes passed. Then something changed. The human pointed toward a command marker. Your next move. The general looked at him. My next move? Yes. The campaign is historical. I know. The human pointed again. That's what you did next. Karvek checked the projected sequence. Correct. A few students shifted uneasily. The human immediately pointed elsewhere. Then this. Correct again. The atmosphere became tense. Another prediction followed. Then another. Then another. Each one matched the historical record perfectly. The crowd no longer looked amused. Now they looked concerned. The human wasn't reconstructing events. He was anticipating them. The distinction mattered. A great deal. For the first time during the challenge, Karvek abandoned his neutral expression. The human noticed instantly. So that's where it happened. The general stared at him. Where what happened? The human pointed toward a narrow corridor between mountain ranges. The moment you realized the enemy commander wasn't thinking logically. Silence. The prediction wasn't merely accurate. It referenced a private observation Karvek had recorded after the campaign ended. Something unavailable in public records. Something buried inside restricted archives. The general slowly folded his arms. Interesting. The human nodded. Then pointed toward the center of the battlefield. And now I can tell you your next 3 moves. The arena became completely silent. Not one voice remained. Every eye locked onto the tactical field. Every eye except Karvek's. His remained fixed on the human. For the first time since arriving at the academy, the legendary general was no longer evaluating a student. He was evaluating a threat. The silence inside the arena carried a different weight now. Earlier, the crowd had gathered expecting a lesson. Now they were watching something few believed possible. General Karvek activated a new simulation layer. The historical campaign vanished. A fresh battlefield replaced it. Unknown terrain. Unknown enemy. Unknown variables. Nothing from public records. Nothing the human could have studied beforehand. If prediction is your strength, Karvek said, let's remove familiarity. The human representative glanced across the projection. Fair. The simulation started. Karvek began issuing commands. Fast. Aggressive. Unpredictable. His forces shifted positions repeatedly. Supply chains rerouted. Defensive networks transformed into attack formations before most observers could follow the logic. The audience watched the battlefield evolve in real time. Then the human began speaking. That's a feint. A few seconds later, the simulation confirmed it. You're creating pressure there to pull reserves away from the southern corridor. Confirmed again. You don't actually care about the city. Correct. Karvek altered direction immediately. The human adjusted immediately. Every tactical change produced another response. Every adaptation met a counter-analysis. The crowd gradually stopped following the battle itself. Instead, they watched the exchange. Move. Response. Adjustment. Explanation. Again and again. What unsettled them wasn't that the human understood the general's decisions. It was how quickly he understood them. No hesitation. No calculations visible. No apparent effort. Finally, Karvek paused the simulation. The battlefield froze. The general turned toward the human girl. Explain. She looked surprised. Explain what? Why this works? The girl glanced toward her fellow human. He isn't doing anything special. The statement triggered immediate reactions from every section of the arena. Karvek folded his arms. Then explain it anyway. The human girl nodded. Most species represented here evolved in relatively stable environments. The crowd listened carefully. When conditions stay consistent for thousands of generations, efficiency becomes valuable. Predictability becomes valuable. Systems become valuable. Nobody disagreed. Those principles formed the foundation of most galactic civilizations. The girl continued. Humanity didn't get that luxury. The giant display shifted as Academy systems automatically projected historical images from Earth. Storms. Deserts. Frozen wilderness. Volcanic regions. Oceans. Predators. Resource shortages. Disease outbreaks. The audience watched in silence. Our ancestors survived environments that changed constantly. Another image appeared. Then another. Then another. Sometimes the danger came from nature. A hurricane. Sometimes from animals. A predator. Sometimes from other humans. A battlefield. The girl shrugged. Usually several at once. A few students laughed. Then realized she wasn't joking. The laughter died immediately. Our species learned a simple lesson. Karvek watched closely. The human continued. If your plan stops working, change the plan. The sentence sounded almost childish. Yet nobody interrupted. Because the demonstration behind her was becoming difficult to ignore. Many species develop one superior solution and refine it. She pointed toward the frozen simulation. Humans develop backups. Another point. Then backups for those backups. Another. Then arguments about why all of them are wrong. A ripple of amusement moved through the crowd. The girl smiled slightly. We spend our entire lives adapting. Karvek glanced toward the human representative. So he predicts me because he's adaptable. The representative answered before the girl could. No. The general looked at him. The human continued. I predict you because you're adaptable. The arena became quiet again. Karvek narrowed his eyes. Explain. You keep changing methods, but your objective remains the same. The human pointed toward the frozen battlefield. Every adjustment follows a logical chain. Another point. I don't need to know the move. Another. I need to know the reason. For the first time, several instructors visibly reacted. That distinction mattered. A great deal. The human wasn't tracking actions. He was tracking intent. Karvek restarted the simulation. Immediately he abandoned his previous strategy. An entirely different doctrine emerged. One rarely taught. One designed specifically to break analytical opponents. The representative studied it for less than 10 seconds. Then he smiled. You dislike uncertainty. The general stopped. The crowd stared. The human continued. Not personally. Professionally. Another uncomfortable silence followed. You create uncertainty for others, but you constantly reduce it for yourself. Karvek said nothing. That silence served as confirmation. The representative nodded. That's why your campaigns work. He pointed toward the battlefield. And that's why I know where this one ends. The simulation advanced. Exactly as predicted. A visible murmur swept through the audience. The impossible was becoming routine. The human girl leaned against the railing. Almost bored. Karvek noticed. You're not impressed. She shook her head. No. The general looked genuinely curious. Why not? The answer came instantly. Because he's not our best strategist. Every conversation inside the arena died. The representative looked upward. Several humans in the audience suddenly found the ceiling fascinating. Karvek stared at the girl. Slowly. Carefully. as though evaluating whether she was serious. Her expression never changed. The general finally asked the question nobody expected. "Then where is your best strategist?" The girl smiled. This time the smile made several human cadets visibly uncomfortable. "Not here." The arena fell silent once more. And for the first time that day, General Karvek wasn't wondering whether humanity possessed exceptional minds. He was wondering how many. General Karvek remained silent for a long moment. The arena waited. Thousands of eyes stayed fixed on the center platform. Finally, the legendary commander spoke. "One strategist proves nothing." The human girl nodded. "Agreed." That answer surprised him. There was no argument. No defense. No attempt to claim victory. Karvek stepped forward. "Then let's finish this properly." A new simulation appeared above the tactical field. The moment military instructors saw it, several exchanged concerned looks. The scenario was infamous. Students referred to it as the impossible collapse. A multi-front conflict. Inferior resources. Compromised intelligence. Political instability. Hostile space. No favorable conditions. The historical version ended in total defeat every time it was tested. Karvek looked toward the human representative. "You wanted a challenge." He pointed toward the battlefield. "There's your challenge." The human studied the projection. Then glanced toward the girl. She shrugged. "Looks annoying." The representative laughed. "Yeah. A little." The casual reaction earned confused stares from every direction. Karvek activated the simulation. Immediately disaster unfolded. Supply depots vanished. Communication networks failed. Enemy fleets advanced from multiple vectors. Civilian unrest spread through core territories. Within minutes, the situation became catastrophic. The Academy observers watched carefully. This was normally where participants began discussing damage control. The human did something different. He ignored the military map. Karvek noticed instantly. Looking in the wrong place. The representative shook his head. "I'm looking at the important part." "What part?" "The people." Several instructors frowned. The simulation continued. The human began issuing orders. None matched conventional doctrine. Abandon strategic worlds. Relocate civilians. Sacrifice territory. Disrupt infrastructure. Create confusion. The audience grew increasingly uncomfortable. One professor finally muttered, "He's making it worse." At first, it certainly appeared that way. The defending force surrendered valuable positions without resistance. Enemy fleets advanced deeper. More systems fell. More resources disappeared. Karvek watched carefully. Unlike the crowd, he wasn't focused on territory. He was watching patterns. And a pattern was emerging. The human wasn't defending locations. He was manipulating expectations. Minutes passed. Then the consequences appeared. Enemy fleets reached objectives that no longer mattered. Supply lines stretched beyond efficiency. Command structures fragmented. Occupation forces became isolated. Strategic victories began producing logistical problems. The audience slowly stopped criticizing. Then they started paying attention. The human continued. Every setback became bait. Every retreat created opportunity. Every apparent mistake concealed another objective. The simulation accelerated. What looked like collapse transformed into something else entirely. Momentum. The enemy suddenly controlled too much territory. Too many fronts. Too many responsibilities. Karvek folded his arms. Now he understood. The representative wasn't trying to win the original war. He was building a different one. A war the enemy had never intended to fight. The battlefield shifted dramatically. Rebellions erupted behind enemy lines. Supply shortages appeared. Command disagreements spread. Occupation costs multiplied. The enemy offensive slowed. Then stalled. Then fractured. The crowd watched in stunned silence. The impossible scenario was changing. For the first time in Academy history, the defending side wasn't merely surviving. It was recovering. The representative leaned back. Now we start. Karvek almost laughed. The simulation had already been running for hours of accelerated time. Yet according to the human, the real operation was only beginning. Counteroffensives launched. Alliances formed. Local commanders received unusual autonomy. Independent decisions created unpredictable advantages. The battlefield became chaotic. Beautifully chaotic. The enemy couldn't adapt quickly enough. Every response generated 3 new problems. Every solution opened another weakness. Eventually the simulation reached its conclusion. Victory. Not a narrow victory. Not a technical victory. A decisive one. The arena remained completely silent. Nobody knew what to say. Academy systems verified the outcome repeatedly. The result never changed. The impossible collapse had been defeated. General Karvek stared at the final display. Then toward the human representative. Then toward the human girl. For the first time since entering the academy, he offered a formal military salute. The entire arena froze. The gesture carried enormous significance. It wasn't politeness. It was respect. You were correct, Karvek said. The human girl raised an eyebrow. About what? The general looked across the arena. At the students. At the instructors. At the future officers who had witnessed everything. Then he answered. I challenged the academy looking for courage. His gaze returned to the humans. What I found was adaptability. The arena remained silent. Karvek continued. Most species master systems. A brief pause followed. Humans master change. Nobody argued. Nobody could. They had just watched proof. The general turned toward the girl one final time. How many humans like you are there? She considered the question. Like me? Yes. She shrugged. Not many. A visible wave of relief spread through portions of the audience. Then she pointed toward the thousands of academy structures visible beyond the arena. Better than me? The relief vanished instantly. The girl smiled. Thousands. For the first time, every species in attendance understood why humanity's rise was attracting attention across the galaxy. Not because humans were stronger. Not because they were smarter. But because when reality changed, humans changed with it. And no opponent had yet discovered how to stop that.